Great. So that should be recording now. Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you everyone for joining Megan today for her research impact and publishing on the conversation workshop, proudly presented to you by the SCPA Postgraduate Student Association. My name is Jodie Jarrett. I'm the newly employed project officer based on the Gold Coast, and I'm also joined today by Katie Hotko, who also does some integral work for SCPA based on the Gold Coast as well, and is also a busy PhD student. I just want to begin by acknowledging country today. The country I'm speaking from is the Yugambeh country, and I also invite you to acknowledge the country that you're joining us from today as well. I'd like to acknowledge Aboriginal people and pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that the lands were never ceded and that inside and outside of the buildings that we exist in will always be Aboriginal land. I would also like to acknowledge the role of Indigenous knowledge in the Academy, both now and in the future. Thank you to all the participants who are joining today, and this recording will be available on completion of the workshop on the YouTube channel as of Monday, and so you can watch it there again or watch it there for the first time, and it will sit there in our library collection of workshop material, so you're happy to browse through all the content. And we strongly encourage you to do that because that's content that's kept there specifically for postgraduate students and SCPA members. We'd love you to, at the moment we're working on some more meaningful engagement on Facebook. So if you're not currently following us on Facebook, we would encourage you to do so. We're going to be doing some fun things in the next couple of months with complimentary yoga classes and book giveaways and a few other things that we have up our sleeves, which I'm sure you'll find engaging and interesting. So if you're not currently a member, we strongly encourage, not currently following us, we'd strongly encourage you to pop over onto our Facebook page. Megan Lee is our presenter today, and the association has a lovely long-standing relationship with Megan, and she has presented a lot of fabulous workshops over the last couple of years, I believe. This one, today's presentation is on social media and the conversation, which I'm sure everybody will find very engaging and interesting. Just with some online etiquette, if you wouldn't mind muting your microphone during the course of the presentation. And I believe Megan will allow for questions. She will inform you whether she will have time for questions during the presentation or at the end, in which case then obviously you're very welcome to unmute your microphone. And please just also remember to be respectful of other people in the class and of the presenter when asking your questions in a respectful manner. So over to you, Megan. Thank you for giving us your time today to offer this workshop to our members, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Jodie. And thank you to the SCPA for having me. It is true, I have a long-standing relationship with the SCPA and everybody who is on the committee. It's such a wonderful place for postgraduate students to really get together and increase their knowledge, but also support each other in what can be quite a long journey, as I have just realised. I have a Bachelor in Psychological Science, which I graduated 4 years ago, and I have been completing my PhD for the past 3 and a bit years now. In those final stages of refining, reviewing chapters. To be honest, my discussion and my conclusion chapters are not completely written yet, but hopefully I will submit in September some stage. So yeah, I'm completely happy to talk to anybody who wants to discuss anything to do with PhD and impart the knowledge that I have learnt over the last 3 years. There's my Twitter and my Instagram handles. I began social media at the beginning of my PhD. I went to the orientation for the PhD way back when, and Amy Cutter-McKenzie from the Faculty of Education said, you, as a PhD student, you need a Twitter and a Facebook page specifically for your degree. And I was like, I don't know how to use these platforms. So on that day, I signed up to Twitter, signed up to Instagram, and developed a professional Facebook page specifically for my PhD. And from there, a lot of things have happened to me because of those platforms. So I wanted to share that with you today. Another thing that happened to me during my PhD, or very beginning of my PhD, was I decided to write a conversation article piece because I got very, very excited about my literature review when I was writing about my topic right at the beginning in the first 6 months. And I was like, I'm going to write a conversation article after I went to a workshop that SCU had put on, and managed to kind of go viral a little bit. Now, my topic is on diet and mental health, so it's very relatable to everyone who has a brain and who eats food, so the whole population. So it might not have been about my great writing skills, but more about the topic itself. So we'll cover that a little bit later on. I am now the highest read staff member at SCU in the conversation, which is pretty cool. And it was just from one paper, basically one article going viral. So I'll talk to you a little bit about how you too can do that. Right. So first of all, before we get going into how to publish in the conversation or what to do with social media, I want to ask across the board here today what you think research impact is. And this is a big conversation that happens in arguments with research academics. What actually is research impact? Does anyone want to give me a definition of what they think that might be? Go for it. I can't hear you. No, what's happening?
Is it okay now? Still
yeah,
not.
That's better. Very good. Very good.
Okay. All right. I guess there's two definitions. I guess the ones that academics normally think about first is their H index, or to be honest, I don't really know so much about this. It's quite vague for me too, but it's very academic. And then I guess there's the other less formal, less academic impact factor, which has to do with swaying public opinion, I suppose, or providing a narrative.
Excellent. So if research impact is H index, most of us don't even know what a H index is, what it consists of, how to get one, how to make it bigger. And to be honest, after nearly 4 years of publishing and writing and really doing a lot, my H index is still only like 2. So it's not really, I don't think it's really very indicative for early career researchers and postgraduate students of how much effort you put in to getting published. And I think it's more indicative of senior academics who have been in the field for quite a long time and have been able to establish a research impact record. But how do you do that? You have to start somewhere, right? Okay, so how do we as postgraduate students, how do we get out into the world and make impact with our research? How do we do that? What sorts of things do you think we can do or utilize to get our research out there to people?
Write for the conversation.
Nice one, Katie. Yes, that is a very good vehicle. Addie?
I mean, probably the traditional means are, going to conferences, publishing in journals, that kind of stuff. But I am learning more and more about, which is why I'm here today, Megan, about, you know, writing for social media and things like the conversation.
Very good. So
Yeah.
traditionally, research impact is what we've been taught to do. Go to conferences, network with other scientists in your field, and publish for scientific journals. Now, the problem with this traditional way of making research impact is that the people who get to see your research are all the people who are also doing the research in your field, or other academics or other scientists who have access to journals, for starters, because they're all mostly behind paywalls, and only universities can access them. And when we go to conferences, it's always the same people in our field. But how do we get the information about this amazing stuff that we're doing out to the people that it could benefit the most? And that's the problem that I always think about with research impact, is getting your research to the public immediately. Now, there's this statistic that I heard the very first year I started my PhD. I went to a Faculty of Health research workshop when I was brand new, had no idea about anything. And they said, it was Susan Nancaro said, when you complete or conduct research, it takes 17 years from the time that you do the research and collect the data to the time that it can make impact on public policy and practice. 17 years is a very long time. When we're considering things like depression or COVID or any of the things that are that we need research in, 17 years is a long time to wait for those policies to change. Even in education, if we were going to change something in education and for it to make impact in the classroom, 17 years is a very, very long time. So one of the great things about public research impact, and I'm talking social media, the conversation, media releases, getting things out to newspapers, magazines, all these types of things, is that the population of interest for your research can see it immediately. The downside of that is that I could post something on Instagram about my research, and then it could later on in the research process become different or change, and then I have no way of changing that idea in the public's mind. It's also information that's not peer reviewed. Now, when we're out there in the social media market, especially as scientists, we are up against all of the pseudoscientific platforms as well. So we're up against personal trainers, and we're up against people with all these types of different advice models, and it's very hard for the public to discern our scientific research from all the pseudoscientific things that are said in the media or out in the market. So that is one thing that we have to be very, very careful of with the research impact. It doesn't have all the fail safes that we have with publishing for journals and things like that. Okay, so why should we be worried about research impact at this stage of our career? So postgraduate level, early career researchers, why should we be worried right now about our research impact?
Otherwise, what's the point of what we're doing?
Yeah.
I feel like there's no point in doing anything unless there's an impact.
Yeah. What about if we don't want to become academics? What about if we don't want to be teachers? We're doing our PhDs or we're doing our masters to become clinical or to go out into industry. Why then is research impact important?
Just while everyone's thinking about the answer to that question, Megan, your slide hasn't changed, if that you have tried to change it.
Thank you.
There we go.
Now you can see the questions. Might make it easier.
There we go.
Thanks, Jubilee. So is there anyone out there who is doing their PhD or doing coursework in masters where they're not going to become an academic? They would like to go out into industry or out into clinic or out into the field in education or out into business? Or we all want to be academics?
We've got a lot moving in the chat, Megan.
I can't.
I'll try and read it out, although everyone else can just unmute themselves and share if they like. But some people are, Megan Pedler did a PhD because she wanted to be an academic, and then she got a job. Jason's undecided at this point. Gurmeet is thinking maybe in industry. Adam is working towards industry impact. So there's a lot going on there. I'll try and yell it out to you as we go.
Okay, cool. I've got some of them up here as well now. It makes more sense now and about people's answers. I'm like, where was the chat? Okay, cool. Megan Pedler, hilarious. Doing a PhD because I wanted to be an academic and got the job on the way. Very good. Okay, cool. So people out in industry, why do we need to be worried about research impact? So I truly believe even in industry, getting out there and being a well-known researcher on one specific topic in your field can definitely help you with career progression, getting known in the field, all that sorts of thing. So increasing research impact is important for everybody, I think, no matter what level of career that you want afterwards. Okay, so let's talk about social media platforms specifically. So I'm going to show you one of my social media platforms. I have 3, but I use them all for different things. And these were the ones that I started when I first, can you see that? Or not? Do I need to?
Yes, we can.
Yay, it's working. Okay, so this is my Instagram. This is my baby. I love this one. Instagram works for my specific field. So my PhD is on diet and mental health. Instagram works for me because pictures of food are very colorful and fun, and there's lots of memes out there in my field on the benefits of eating healthy and mental health. However, if you've got a PhD topic that's not as fun and colorful and it's not so driven towards pictures, Instagram probably wouldn't be the best platform for you. But I'll just go real quickly through some of the things that have happened from my Instagram. So I don't have that many followers. I've got 573 people who follow my page. Some of them are industry people, some of them are other academics, other students. But from my Instagram page, I've become well known in the field of diet and depression. And all of the key players and a lot of the key players in that field and also in the nutrition field know who I am because of my page. Now, I only update once every day. I only put one thing up a day. I don't do it on the weekends, or I try not to do it on the weekends because it's bad for you to work on the weekends. But here are some of the pictures that I use. So I use like a bit of a mix of food that I make because I have a real passion for making food that I enjoy. So comfort foods that I enjoy and turning them and giving them healthy swaps. That's my thing. So here is a picture of Sunday's breakfast, which was French toast made with sourdough and coconut milk with a coconut yogurt, caramelized pineapples, strawberries and kiwis. Like simple stuff. But attached to the post, I write a little blurb about why that's good for your brain health, right? And then I've got infographics, which is what these are called. This one comes from, so I stole it from Drew Ramsey, who is the biggest guy in diet and depression in America. about the hippocampus and the role of the hippocampus in mental health, and how diet can increase the volume of the hippocampus. And I've got some ferments. But as you can see, there's like lots of color in my Instagram posts. I don't just do diet, I do stuff about occupational stress in academia, which is quite interesting. Or then I've got tweets that I post up on my Instagram as well, some more food pictures, some recipe books that I really like that are in line with my definitions of healthy living. Maggie Beer, she's amazing. This one actually, her recipe book here is about how to lessen cognitive decline as you age using food, but everything in it is exactly the same as what I'm promoting for diet and mental health. So, which makes sense because the brain is the same thing for both. Another really good thing that I use my social medias for is when we publish articles, you can instantly promote them. This one, let's see if I can open it. Can you guys see that? So this is my favorite paper. It was written by lovely Amy, who is here today. Out of Tune, Perceptions of Engagement with and Responses to Mental Health Interventions by Professional Popular Musicians, a scoping review. In this, we talk about why professional musicians don't engage with mental health interventions and some of the reasons why. And we also found a massive gap in this paper, which Amy might be looking at filling for her own PhD, which is very, very exciting. But by posting this on my socials, on Twitter and on Instagram, it gets a much wider scope than if you're just publishing in the journals itself. There is a paper on how many more citations a paper gets when it's tweeted than when it's traditionally shared amongst other scientists. So that's very, very cool. You can also tag people, as you can see here. So when you write an @ and tag someone in it, so you can tag the big people in your field when you write a paper so that they can then share it to their friends and colleagues. And you can use hashtags to get it out there to people who might be interested in the keywords for your papers, which is really cool. Okay, so I might just close that down for a little bit. Any questions about Instagram itself? We'll start with Insta and then we'll move on to Twitter because I use them for two very different things. This is more my public, getting the message out to the public platform.
Megan, I have a question.
Great.
You mentioned before near the beginning of your Instagram page when you were talking about it that you, I don't know exactly what you were referring to, but you said you stole something from someone. Was it just a picture? Was it research itself? And what does that mean? Is it okay? Or what does it mean?
Okay, so this is Drew Ramsey. He is the leading researcher in diet and depression in America. And he posted this on his Instagram. It's just a little infographic about the hippocampus. And I stole it on the day that he posted it and posted it to my Instagram. But as you can see, my picture has his name at the top and his face and his little tag down the bottom. So whenever I borrow or steal content for my Instagram from other people, I always try to refer to them either in the infographic itself or as a tag. And you can see over here on the side I've tagged Drew in that as well. And he comments on it, which is really exciting for me. Because when you're like the people in your field like reply, like you get really excited. Anyway, I get little like researcher crushes on people, which is cool.
I think that's a really good point, Megan, that we should just, no matter what we're doing in social media and things, just giving respect, because we'd want that to happen to us as well. You always tag. If you're resharing, you always acknowledge.
Yes, it's like citing. Yeah, it's like citing. If you use a picture from anywhere and you use it as original content, you should always cite the person who originally did that picture. Katie showed me a really cool thing called Unsplash. I think you can see it up here actually. It's a free website for images, and you can use them. They're not copyrighted, but each of the pictures has the original artist's name, so you can cite them. And you can search for like relevant, like I just do like healthy food and see what comes up. Yeah, so I use things off here all the time. So, but these are free and completely able to be used, so you can't get in trouble if you use these on the internet.
And I think citing, it also creates a community as well. Like when you tagged that researcher, he sees it, he potentially will then go and look at your stuff maybe, and then your reach gets wider by doing that. There's a mutual respect happening there.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I will also post other people's, there's Drew again, I'll also post other people's research as well, or snippets from papers that are really interesting, and tag them in it so that they know. I also put up little things like this, like writing my PhD in the sun. It doesn't always have to be serious. Like I try to make mine not serious, like this. This is one of the good ones. Calories in Easter chocolate. Stop being a dick to yourself. Enjoy your Easter. Something funny and fun. Now, although I'm all about diet and mental health, I'm also against food restriction. So I'm anti-diets. So you'll see a lot of that on my Instagram pages as well. So I'm like, here's the foods that are good for your brain. Don't restrict foods and diet, because that's bad for your mental health also.
Yeah. And Megan, you mentioned that when you pick picture from Unsplash, so you tag the photographer as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Always. Here's a post where I did a podcast with Ali Jaffe from the UK and Sabrina Morkel from Austria, I think, where we talked about food and mental health. And you can put your links on your Instagram page and people can listen to the podcast. So that's also stuff that you can do. And people like it, share it. All gets out there. So this is, in my opinion, the best way to get your research findings out to the public. And then you can tag things and highlight them to your thing. So like some of my papers, the podcast, things like that are all tagged at the top. Okay. Let's move on to the questions again. Okay. So can you see my questions?
Yep.
So which ones should we target? So you saw my Instagram. It's really good for pictures. It's not very good for certain things, like you can't share papers directly. You can't put links to things in Instagram that people can click on and go to. It's basically people can just look at photos and comment. So when you're trying to share your research, it's a little bit harder because you have to put a link in your bio and then the person has to follow your bio and then go into it. They can't click on it directly. So has anyone else had any experience with other social media platforms that they have found beneficial other than Instagram?
I have found Facebook very useful in my data collection.
Yeah, tell me about that. How
Yeah,
come?
so I posted my online survey on 4th of August. And because I already joined lots of groups in Facebook. Mm-hmm. So I already, like long time before, I joined vegans in Queensland, vegans in Australia, vegetarians, plant-based, and all these groups relating to my research. And when I posted on my Facebook page, and then I specifically posted in all these groups and asked them for their permission, please delete if not allowed. And sometimes they post, and most of they post, and some of them decline as per the rules. And within a day, I received 150 responses.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I really appreciate the way the people respond to the survey on Facebook. I think because of I joined the groups, and some of them shared as well, like my friends, you shared, and thanks to you. And lots of other people shared on their Facebook pages. So yeah, it really helped. I found Facebook was the most effective
Yeah.
platform other than
So
Instagram.
how long's it been open now?
So I posted on 4th of August, so it's 13 now. So I reached 290 now.
So 300 in 9 days.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
I shared on Twitter, Insta, LinkedIn, Facebook, and some of them I emailed them, WhatsApp.
Yep.
I used all the platforms. Yeah.
So Gurmeet brings up a really, really good point. There's just a message on chat. Adam Wilson, what is your Facebook called? It's the same as my Instagram. So at Megan Loving Me Again is my Facebook. It's good to have them consistent. So Gurmeet brings up a really good point about how she started early in her Facebook. Now, one of the main things about social media, and one of the things that was beneficial for me, was because I started my social media platforms at orientation. And what I did was every time I read a paper that was like seminal in my field, I would search Twitter and Facebook and Instagram for those authors, and I would add them. Then I would go through their list of people in there that they liked, and you can see like their person's name and a little bio of what they do. So anyone that had anything to do with nutrition and mental health, I added them as well. So I spent a good month or so stalking all the authors in my field, adding them on my social media platforms, and then stalking their friends lists and adding them. So I built up a bank of people in my field who I wanted to target. And usually when you add someone, they add you back. And that's why you have to be very, very clever about your little bio. As you will see when I do my Twitter, I have some very specific information about myself in my bio, so that when people click on someone else's name and see me and see that I'm in this field, they'll be like, oh, that's a field I'm interested in. I will add her. So
just on that, Megan, because I don't know, I guess I've already got a little bit of a footprint out there because I've been using social media for a while, not related to this. When you did that and you deliberately started following the people that were seminal in your field and things, did you start with a fresh account, or did it take time sort of for you to merge an account that was already existing to be used in this way?
No, I started with fresh accounts. I'd never had Twitter before. Instagram, I started in honours year, so the year before. And I started it because I wanted to use it as a data collection tool, but Instagram is not the place to do that. People can't get to your survey very easily from Instagram. So, but I like Instagram because it's fun and colourful, and it does serve its purpose in that way. So let's have a look at Twitter, and we'll talk about that. So Twitter is something that I use for a different reason. Twitter is much more professional, and in my opinion, is that my Twitter? Yeah. Can you see that? In my opinion, Twitter is the best platform for academics. It's the best platform for collecting data, depending on your research field. Gurmeet's was different because Gurmeet needed to target specific vegan, vegetarian populations. So Facebook is the best for that because they'll have their groups on there. But as Gurmeet said, you do need to think forward and become a member of those groups and be active as a member, so that you don't just look like a researcher who's trying to use that platform. So you need to be a member and be an active member for a while before you start asking to be to collect data from these people. You can't just go on there and be a shark. It's like turning up to a picnic where a family's having a picnic and just sitting down halfway through and asking to join. Like, that's what collecting research is like. If you are not part of the community first, then you have very little likelihood of the admins allowing you to share your survey. So all this social media stuff starts small and builds. People will get to know you over time, and then they will start sharing your stuff. So you can't just start on social media and start putting out survey stuff or expecting people to share your work. You need to build relationships. It's just like the real world. You need to build a community around you, and you need to be active in that community to be able to use it later on for your needs. So in saying that, here's my, oh my gosh, look how many tweets. I didn't know that they shared that. This is my tagline, Megan. 2,439 tweets since the beginning of my PhD. So what does Megan do when she's procrastinating having to write her PhD? Ah, that's hilarious. I did not know that. Anyway, it was all data collection. Twitter is very different to my Instagram. Twitter, you've only got 180 words that you're able to use in each tweet. So I sometimes put up pictures, but most of the time it's just opinions or links to things. I tend to retweet lots of stuff now. People say that's bad. I sometimes don't have any original thoughts to put on there, but I do really like other people's stuff. So Uma Naidu here, she is another American researcher in my field, and she puts up stuff all the time. So I'm always retweeting her stuff about mental health and food. John Cryan is like a scientist in the gut microbiome, which is really, really cool stuff in my field at the moment. But then I also share things from my colleagues, Dr. Peter Stapleton, who is at Bond. And then there's lots of PhD stuff on Twitter. Twitter is awesome for PhD support, as well as being something you can use for data collection and things. This is my friend Kathleen. She's just had her first PhD paper accepted for publication. See how excited she is. But this is a really good place to get things. Oh, here's something original from me. The other day I was feeling very philosophical. It was the weekend. And I wrote, psychologists' commitment to empiricism means they must learn to think critically. Their skeptical attitude means that psychologists are trained to ask, where's the evidence and how do we know? So, and then I've tagged a couple of really big people in Twitter called Academic Chatter, Open Academics. Academic Twitter is another really good one. They will retweet your stuff immediately. And they're American based, so that gets you out internationally, which is really, really cool. We've got a lot of our survey stuff done internationally through them. Yeah, but as you can see, it's not as much fun as my Instagram. Oh, here's another one. Anyone know how to use the word function for creating lists of figures or tables using APA 7 format? I spent hours this week creating captions, applying label names, and they just won't work. We didn't really get a lot of people telling us how to do that, but I did post one time about something that I got stuck in stata coding, which is data analysis, and I had a heap of people from all around the world helping me to fix the code that was not working for me. Here's Gurmeet's survey. So here's a really good example of how data collection can be used. So Gurmeet's put a really beautiful photo of a tray of food, and she's provided her direct link to the Qualtrics form, and that will take you straight to the survey, which is really awesome. And then people can retweet it, people like it, people will see it, and it will get lots of activity. And this is part of the reason why Gurmeet has so many, because she has so many friends who she's built a community with.
And I shared it in the chat here if anyone wanted to click on it and fill it out later.
It's wonderful, this survey. I love it. So, any questions about Twitter and how Twitter can be useful for postgraduate research, postgraduate studies, etc.?
So my question is, how can you increase your followers?
The golden question. So same thing. The best way to increase followers is by going through the friends list or the follower list of people who you already have and finding people who have similar interests to you. Liking other people's things, retweeting other people's things. And when you retweet, rather than just retweeting like I've done here, putting your own little message at the top is really cool, because then that person sees that you've got this original idea about their work and you can follow it. This one actually is really interesting because this is something that I did this morning. It was a conversation article, funnily enough, we'll get to that in a second, written by someone, I don't know, a student maybe. Amy Zadao, research fellow in organisational psychology at the University of South Australia. And she wrote about, do you answer emails outside of work hours? Do you send them? New research shows how dangerous this can be. And this is specifically targeted at an academic audience because it talks about us basically doing so. Now, I have been thinking this morning, because I just wrote a paper on, published a paper on occupational stress in academia. And there was two glaring gaps in the literature. Number one, they don't talk about the mental health effects of anonymous student feedback, which we are targeting in another paper. But then it got me to thinking about this. They don't talk about this either, how academics are constantly connected to their emails, constantly connected to work, like the calendars on their phones. So I'm going to contact Amy, send her my paper about the scoping review that I wrote on occupational stress, and ask her if she wants to do a research project on this. And I don't know Amy, I've never heard of Amy before, but Amy will now get a opportunity to do a whole research project just from something she posted on the conversation that a colleague of mine shared. Like Amy didn't even share it to me directly. So you can see like the reach that could happen for you from just posting something interesting on Twitter.
Megan, Annie's just asked in the chat here, do you feel like you're doubling up a lot?
Oh, that's a really good question. Okay, so my Instagram is immediately linked to my Facebook. I have actually taken Facebook off my phone because I don't use it for anything other than Marketplace. And I find Facebook, I kind of get sucked into a vortex of scrolling through nothing and losing an hour of my life. So I have actually linked my Instagram to Facebook and taken it completely off my phone and out of my life. See you later. My phone doesn't have Facebook. My phone doesn't have emails anymore as of this morning. Kind of panicking a bit about that. Anyway, so Twitter I use for totally completely different things. The only time I double up on content for Instagram and Twitter is when I'm promoting papers or data collection. That's the only time. I try to make everything on my Twitter about my PhD specific, like doing my PhD rather than the content of my PhD. And Instagram's more about the content of diet and mental health and getting the public to know about what foods are good for their brain health, basically. Whereas Twitter's more of a professionally thing that I'm sharing with other people in my field. It's less about public impact. Yes, go for it.
I have a Twitter account that I started maybe about a year and a half ago or something like that. And I wanted to, I was using it for, I guess, quasi-academic purposes. It was a paper that I published in a teacher's journal rather than an academic journal. And I wanted to link or network with somebody else and have them share it and so on. But the question I was going to ask is, I know you said that you started most of your, or all of your social media platforms at the beginning of your research. Do you think it's a good idea to have an account for Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc., that's specifically for research and not
Yes.
mixed up with your,
I completely think so. My personal Facebook page is completely separate from my professional one.
You have got separate ones? You've
Yeah.
got separate, okay, all right.
I don't have personal Instagram or personal Twitter. They're just, I specifically use them just for research.
Okay.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have them together because you don't want people in your field seeing this, like, stuff about you personally. I have a few too many wines, post something personal on your personal Facebook page and then everyone in your field sees it. Like, no thanks. So yeah. LinkedIn, there was a question about LinkedIn. LinkedIn I'm on, but I don't love. It's just like, I don't know, it does become very much a double up of things. I only open LinkedIn and use it when I want data collection or I want to, like, share my papers. Other people use LinkedIn very well, but they're probably using it solely instead of another one of the platforms. The benefit of LinkedIn is that everybody from your not from your field, but everyone kind of in academia or in, like, teaching kind of is on there. It's harder to get linked up with researchers in your field. I've found anyway, or that might just be my account where I've only got people from SCU on there. So, and that's not helpful because people at SCU don't really care too much about what's happening in my research, to be honest. They don't have time to read my papers. They're doing their own papers. Right. So next thing. So any more questions about Twitter before I close Twitter down for the day?
Megan, can I just ask you a question? It's Emma here.
Yes.
So you were saying, like, on Twitter how you showed us that thing that you wrote the other day when you were feeling inspired and you had a little quote there and a reference. I was just wondering that fine line between putting something on Twitter that's your original thought that might be going into your PhD, for example, but you haven't published on that point, like, just in terms of protecting yourself. And because sometimes I've found, like, I only use LinkedIn, I don't have these other accounts, but I don't really post my own thinking because of a little bit of a fear that somebody else will steal my idea. And, you know, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
yes, I definitely do.
And protecting yourself.
Yeah, if you have original stuff that you don't want people to steal, just don't put it up there. Most of my stuff is regurgitated. In fact, my whole PhD is pretty much regurgitated information, so I'm not really worried about anyone stealing my stuff. Yeah, but yours is a little bit different. Yours is very unique, so I can understand why you would feel like that.
Yeah, no worries. And I suppose after you've published on something or whatever the case may be, but I was just wondering, that fine line.
Yes, very good question. Right, back to this. Are there any other avenues outside of social media for increasing research impact? And we've talked about this a little bit, the conversation. We've talked about media releases. Getting involved with the SCU media and marketing team is really cool. They did a lot of stuff for me at the beginning. I don't know how they are now because I haven't engaged with them for a while, but they got, like, a magazine article done on me, and they did a podcast with me, and they got me a spot on ABC breakfast television and things like that. So that was really cool. Annie's got her hand raised. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm doing a prac at Queensland Athletics and doing a report to the board about mental health in athletics, best practice. I saw a really good article in Runner's World by an American journalist, and it was just one of the most well-balanced newspaper sort of things I'd read. And I just emailed her and congratulated her on it and told her what I was doing. And she's asked me to keep her updated that she'd like to print stuff in Runner's World when it comes out.
Amazing. And these are the things, like, when I went to the UK for the International Society of Nutritional Psychiatry Research Conference, and it was full of all the, like, big people in my field, and I'd only been in my PhD for maybe just over 12 months. And because of Twitter and Instagram, people knew who I was, but I didn't know people knew who I was. And I rocked up to the conference, and the queen of diet and depression, Felice Jacka, was there. And I was like, oh, it's Felice Jacka. And she's like, Megan. And she gave me a big hug, and she's like, welcome. And she knew who I was just from my socials. And I was like shocked. So things like that can happen. Like, and all the people that you network with, you realize they already know who you are. It's quite a weird feeling when they like start talking, people you've never met before start talking to you about your stuff. And you're like, how do you know that? Because you share it constantly on socials. So, and I've gotten lots and lots of opportunities from just posting every day. Lots. The new job that I got at Bond was because of socials. Pretty much all of the research I've ever done has been because of people contacting me from socials, like asking me to collaborate with them, things like that. So it's just amazing, especially for early career researchers, to get out and get their name known, I think. Any questions about socials before we move on to the conversation?
Megan, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, because I've been working for a little while trying to get a website for myself put together. And I just wonder, do you have your own website where you put all your stuff together and then you can point everything back to it? Or do you use a website at all? Or
so that's a really good question. I was considering doing a website, and I was also considering doing a blog earlier in my career. And I told Adam Shoemaker, who used to be the VC of SCU and was a wonderful man, I told him what I wanted to do, and he's like, that sounds like a lot of work. And then I was thinking, yeah. And he's like, imagine all the words that you're going to write in a blog, and how if you put them into your PhD, how much sooner your PhD would get finished. And I was like, you know, he's really right. So Instagram is, and my Instagram is kind of like my little blog. I put like a little tiny bit of words. What I find with my Instagram is that it keeps me engaged with my own research as well. Because when you're writing a PhD, there's big blocks of time where you're not actually writing, or there's big blocks of time where you're not engaged with like the literature review. And I think more so for me, that Instagram keeps me engaged with that content on a daily basis. So every day I've got to put up something little about my field. I go and find it, I put it up. It doesn't take very long. But I'm always looking, and I'm always in my PhD. I'm always thinking about my PhD because of that, I think. And that was one of the big things of why I've kept it for so long. And I will continue to do so. It might shape and change after I finish my PhD to something different, but we'll see. Good question. Let's talk about the conversation. I'm on the wrong screen. Here we go. Any other questions before we move on? Nope. Cool. This one we will go through a little bit faster. Why should I consider writing for the conversation? What are some reasons why we think writing for the conversation would be of benefit, apart from getting your research into the public domain?
I think that the conversation is read, well, it's read by a broad range of people, but I think academics also read the conversation and then are directed to your work and then would potentially cite your work. So I reckon that, I mean, if a lot of us here are potentially wanting to work in academia, we want our citations up. It's just the game. And so I think that the conversation is a really great way to get your work out there for other academics to read, and then potentially, hopefully cite, or as you said before, to see, and then maybe they'll reach out to you, or you can read conversation articles and reach out to other people to make connections for more research.
Very good, yeah. Jubilee's written wide audience. Yes, that's very good. Amy says news media will be interested in anything with a public interest angle. Amy's had some traction with press, broadcasts, and podcasts by dovetailing her research into current topical issues. Example, the impacts of the pandemic on the mental health of the music industry. And that is exactly why the conversation is beneficial, and especially at our level of academic interest. So let's have a look at some of the reasons I have on here. Okay, so we've got, the conversation has 30,000 plus registered authors. It's a really good research impact pathway. All articles provide evidence-based citations. Now, this is my favorite one. There are so many news media type platforms out there. The conversation, everyone who writes to the conversation has to be an academic above postgraduate level. So if you don't have your PhD yet, or you don't have your master's yet, you do have to write with someone else from the university who does. I somehow got out of that for my first one, but then got told that I needed to for my next ones. But yeah, you do. And the best thing about it is that every single statement that is made in the conversation has to be backed by evidence, and links to that evidence are available. Now, I actually tell my students when they're doing assessments to go to the conversation first. Type in their keywords, see if there's a conversation article, and then use the links inside the conversation article to start looking for the scientific research. And I think that they love doing that. The conversation is written for index of 16 years old. So they say, please write your article in plain English, no academic language, no scientific jargon, for someone who's 16 or for the plumber down the road. I was very good at that because my academic writing skills at the beginning of my PhD were terrible. So I was very good at writing for a 16-year-old audience. You have full sign-off and approval of everything that goes into the conversation. Although I have had some academics have trouble with editors trying to change the whole scope of their article. You have to be careful of and put your foot down. What else? Your profile shows expertise. So again, like social media, if people in your field see your profile on the conversation, they can go, they can find you, and they can offer you collaborations in research if they've got similar research interests. There's a daily newsletter, active social media with the conversation. So they will tweet you and you can retweet, which is really cool. They're not on, no, they're not on Instagram, I don't think. See, Megan? Okay, so this is what a research dashboard looks like. Oops, I don't know how to get rid of the writing, but that's okay. We'll ignore it.
Megan, can I ask you something just before you go on?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned just a moment ago about who can write for the conversation. You said that you already have to have a PhD to do it, and I thought that wasn't the case. I thought if you were doing a PhD, it says on their site that you can write for them anyway.
Yep.
And in fact, I already made a profile, but is that true?
You have to have a supervisor co-author with you if you're a PhD student.
For the conversation, they have to. So could you just write it and get your supervisor to add their name to it, and then that would be okay?
Yes, absolutely. But they have to be on the article for the conversation. So if their profile has to be there with yours.
And do you still get to be the author, or they're a co-author? Okay, yeah.
Yes, but the conversation doesn't care about author order either, which is weird. So a couple of times I've written and they've put my supervisor first, which made me real cross. But anyway, all of the like logistics and the numbers for your paper go on there anyway, despite who the first author is. But that did make me a bit cross. It's like they don't understand how academics work.
Okay, thanks. So
this is my dashboard. As you can see, I have at this time, so I think this was a month or so ago, I produced this slide. I had 808,000 readers. I was in the process, as you can see over here, I was in the process of writing an article for The Conversation on university teaching staff and occupational stress in Australia and New Zealand, but it had not been published yet. Then here in my published articles, you've got a little scroll down of all the articles that you've published, how many people have read it, how many comments that were made, and what your logistics look like for Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And then you can click on that and go to it. I currently have 6 articles. There's been over 249 comments. 102 people have, I made 102 comments. I received 249. And over here is my engagement. So I've had 22 engagements. Now what they are is either video interviews, radio interviews, newspaper interviews, other researchers asking for collaboration. So you need to tell The Conversation about everything that happens from every article. So let's go and have a look at my conversation dashboard now. Can you see that?
Yep.
Great.
With those comments there, Megan, the comments that you've made, are they just comments that you've made on your own articles, or is that total comments that you've made on The Conversation?
That's just on your own articles. So they're my like kind of responses to other people's, what other people have written. And to be honest, lots of people are friendly, but you do get trolled. So if you're going to write for The Conversation, be prepared to have someone troll you. I had, which one was it? 5 types of food to increase your psychological well-being. I said, and this was the sentence, in Western society, we eat too much of certain processed foods or certain foods like, and I said, pasta, cakes, pastries, and potato. And one guy got so angry at me for demonizing the potato. He wrote all these nasty comments on my thing. Then he went and found me on all my social medias and trolled me on there. And he tried to say that I had no scientific credibility and that I was saying bad things about the potato, which wasn't true. I was just saying we eat too many of them or too much of them. Anyway, so we had that, and then The Conversation had to try and get rid of his comments, and I had to shut him down on all my socials. And anyway, so be prepared for that. That's a potential thing that can happen from being out in the real media. Being famous would not be a very fun thing anymore, I don't think. Okay, so any questions on the dashboard and how that works, or do you want me to show you stuff? There's some really cool things. There's all tweets that people have made about my articles, and you can click on those and go to the tweet and retweet it, or you can like engage with those people and add them on your Twitter, or you can say thank you for sharing my article in The Conversation. So many of them. Then you can also address the comments. Some people are nasty, some people aren't. It tells you what countries your article has gone to. And one of the great things about The Conversation is that not only does The Conversation share your article, but other news media pick it up. So the ABC then decided from this Conversation article that they wanted to share it. So you can click on the link to the ABC. It's not there anymore. They've probably taken it down. But you can click on the link and see where they've shared your article. So one of the really cool things that happened to me on my first article was that I got a text message at 5 o'clock on the day that I published my very first article from the ABC, and the ABC had sent it as a link to every single subscriber of the ABC Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, and it went crazy. I got like 500,000 people or something, or I think it was 200,000 people in like one day for one article. It was really cool. SBS, not SPSS, shared it. But like even people in other countries. The Conversation also decided that they wanted to turn one of my papers into a paper in Indonesia. So that's why this one is not in English. So they put it into Indonesian and then shared it on The Conversation in Indonesia. So yeah, lots of really cool things can happen from being on the conversation or sharing from the conversation. I've lost my slides. It's okay. No problem. Can you see those now? Yep.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so some of the things that can happen from publishing in the conversation. 60% of authors were contacted for media follow-up. That happened for me. That was really exciting. Being on Breakfast TV was really cool. 14% of authors were invited to speak at conferences. So that's really cool for your resume if you get asked to speak at a conference. 15% were contacted for research collaboration. 77% went on the radio talking about their research. 50% were contacted by print media. 25% were contacted for television. 35% for websites. 8% received business requests, and 78% discussed it with their friends. In my first year with the conversation, they sent me a report, and they said that although I had just over 500,000 reads by the end of that year, I had, and they did some form of calculation of all my engagements, they said that that my research had reached over 1.5 million people in that time. Now compare that to the 17 years it takes to get a journal article to make research impact in public policy. 1.5 million people have seen my research in 12 months. So,
can I just clarify something? This slide that you have up here, is this for publishing in the conversation or just social media? Okay, for the conversation.
Everything from now on is the conversation.
Okay, yep.
Yep. Cool. So you might ask, when do I write for the conversation? So there are a couple of things. With the conversation, they get so many pitches for articles. So you have to be on the ball with what's current in the media now. Now, I'm not very good at that because I don't watch current affairs. I stay away from media because I think it's bad for your soul. But you need to hook your article to something that's interesting in the media currently. So another PhD student, Sally Gregory, and I decided, do you remember when Shane Gould won Survivor? Shane Gould is like in her 70s maybe, and she did Survivor in Australia for 90 days, lived on this island, survived, went up against people who are in their 20s in all these amazing like endurance like competitions, and she won it, and she did a very good job of it because of her social game. But when that happened, the day that Shane Gould won Survivor, Sally Gregory and I, who Sally's did her PhD in active aging, we said, right, we are going to pitch to the conversation about how active aging, because Shane Gould was definitely aging well because she was very physically fit still, and because she used to be a swimmer back in her day, and she'd kept up her fitness as she got older. And we did this whole piece on active aging, and we tagged it to Shane Gould winning. So we put that into our thing. So that's a news hook. That's a really good way of hooking your current research to something interesting that's happening in the media. Chris Stevens also did a really cool one on drinking in sport advertising, and he hooked it to the end of the grand final, the NRL grand final. So he put that out at the same time as the NRL grand final, and did lots of stuff on drinking while watching football, or drinking footballers who drink as well, lots of stuff like that. So he did that hook. So one of the big things with the conversation is they're going to wonder, why is your research going to be interesting to the public? They don't want to publish something that the public's going to be like, this is boring scientific stuff. We want to know why the public will be interested. So that's a big thing. And pitching that to the conversation is the hardest part of actually getting your article listed or published. But you can do lots of different things. You can do a listicle. We did a listicle on the 5 foods that were best for your mental health. So you can do kind of like a list of things. You can do a fresh take on an old issue, or you could do a fact check. A fact check is really cool. I did a fact check on why comfort foods, why we tend to want more comfort foods in the winter, which is a really fun one. So you've got to think about, how can you make your research interesting to the public? Why would someone be interested in your research out there in the public? And there's lots of reasons. And then you need to refine your idea. You can't just send something to the conversation. It's kind of like doing a little bit of a literature review first. You've got to go to the conversation, type in the keywords for your article or what your idea is, and find out if there's been anything written by the conversation already on that topic. They get really cranky if you send something that they've already done. Pay attention to the news, what people are talking about. I find it really interesting that something will happen in the media, and then the next day there's a conversation article, and I'm like, how did they write that so fast? Because it has to be an academic in Australia to write it. So someone out there who's right on the ball about what's currently happening in current affairs has written an article and been like, put this out the day after this happens. Bam, straight away, there it is. You're like, how did they write that so fast? Do you know something no one else knows? Especially the kind of thing that the general public could know about. Have you discovered something new? One of the big mistakes that I made when I first started writing for the conversation was I got so excited when I was writing my literature review about my PhD that I wrote all my conversation articles before I published anything. So I couldn't tag my research or my publications in the conversation articles. So as we said before, there's links to citations. So everyone else's work is in my conversation articles, but none of my own. Now I've changed that around. Now I publish an article and then I write a conversation piece on it. And then I tag my research in it so that other people will be able to click on the link and then see my journal article. Recently, we also put a link for a survey where we were trying to collect data from, and it got stalled. And we put that link into the conversation. We got another 400 people do our survey. I didn't think they would let us do that, but they did. So that's an option that could also be used for data collection. Any questions before we move on? Good to go. Okay, I'm being mindful of the time. When you're refining your idea, definitely talk to the SCU marketing team. They are really, really good with how to write a conversation article. So they will be like an excellent resource to use. Make sure that your ideas are relevant to the wider community, not just to academics or scientists. How can you make the idea exciting for those who are not experts in the field? The articles are around 600 to 800 words. Starting with a clear idea of dot points is really good. And it'll give you a clear response when you've done your pitch. From the time that you pitch to the conversation to the time the article goes out, they give you very limited time to write your article. So I have in the past written the article before I've pitched, but then if you get rejected, which has also happened to me on many occasions, then you've written a 500 to 800 word article for no reason. So you have to weigh up the pros and cons of doing so.
Yesterday we were speaking to the editor for the conversation in education, and she said there's about a 3-day turnaround from when your pitch is approved to when it's goes live. How many days, like in your experience, has that been about right?
Yep, that's been about right. All of the ones where I've written the article first, I'm like, sure, and sent it straight to them. But because I've gotten a bit lazier or more busy, I haven't done that for the past couple, and they're like, right, we're publishing on this day. Here is your proposed idea. This is what we want to see. And you're like, right. So you have to be prepared for that. When you do a pitch, this is exactly the screen that you will see. So if you write your 600 word article first, then you need to be able to pitch your article in these 3 boxes. They want to know in 1 sentence what your article will say. Then they want to know, why will our readers need to know about this? Why is this important to our readers? And then some key points and examples you will use to support your argument. So as you can see, not very big, not a lot of words, be succinct, and dot points are good in that final one. But that's exactly what you will see, and that's all you will be given when you pitch. Right.
And how much time they take to reply?
Almost instantly. So a day, 24 hours is usually the turnaround for a pitch. And don't be disheartened if you get a rejection. I've been rejected on heaps of ideas. The Shane Gould one didn't get up, and I don't know why, because it was topical and it was interesting. And
Sorry, Megan, I missed Gurmeet's question. What was the time frame you were describing? It's how long you have to write the article?
how long between when you pitch it and when they give you a response?
Oh, okay, 20, yeah.
Yeah.
And how long do you have to write the article on average in your, if they say, yep, sounds good.
Yeah, it's about 3 or 4 days.
3 or 4 days, okay.
So
So
early,
sorry, Megan, do
Yeah.
they give you a no as well, or do they leave you hanging?
no.
and then
You
don't
get
know?
it. You get a definite no.
Okay.
They've got a automated system where you get a nice little letter that says, sorry, these are the reasons that we don't want to publish this. It's written quite nicely, but you definitely do get a no. Okay, so like Katie said, they were talking yesterday to the education editor. So each different field has their own editor. It's really cool if you do write one to become friends with that person. So be really, really nice to them in the publishing stage, because they will contact you again and ask you to write for them. So that it goes from you having a pitch to them saying, hi, could you do this for us? And then that's really cool. So being able to do something a little bit out of your field, or not out of your field, but out of what you're currently doing in your PhD or in your master's. So they can't publish everything. They receive hundreds of pitches a day. So yeah, rejection can be a little bit nasty. Pitching is a skill, so practice makes perfect. Keep going. Even if you get rejected, don't worry about it. Keep it on. Always have that pitch about why your story is important. Develop relationships with the editor, and keep it conversational, as it's not an academic paper. That's my favorite thing, is writing like that after writing all academic and fancy. Okay, so what's your story in one sentence? Why is it interesting or significant for non-academic readers? The conversation loves photos, videos, audio to add to the story. Now, once you've written your article, they will put up their own non-copyrighted images, etc. You don't have any control of what they are. Some of them I've been really unhappy with. Some of them I've been super happy with. If you have your own photos, that's really good. They love stuff out from the field. So if you've got stuff in the field, Katie, your stuff from your PhD would be amazing in the conversation. But you don't want to do that until you've published or you've submitted. Just be very aware of that. If you put it out there in the real world and then you try and submit your PhD and it's already been showcased, that could be a problem. I like to link TED Talks to mine. They're my fave. So if you go and Google TED Talks on your topic, they're really cool to put in. If you've got like something that you've done, like a 3-minute thesis video or something, that's really cool as well. They love that. Graphs and figures, Gurmeet, you like doing those. They would love your little infographic kind of graphs and figures that you do on the COM-B model. That would be really cool. I'm not very good with stuff like that, so I let them do it for me. Okay, and like I said before, pitch after you publish in a journal. That was the big mistake I made at the beginning. This way you can link your journal publication to the article, get more citations. Okay, so I'll show you now what an actual article looks like once you've been approved and you've published. Okay, so this was the picture I was talking about that I was not happy with. Where's my fun food photo? They give me a sad looking person who's eating a bowl of noodles, 2-minute noodles. I guess that works with the title, doesn't it? I'm being a bit picky. Okay, so this is what an article actually looks like when you do publish it. So you've got your title, when it was published, you've got your little bio that people can click on and contact you. Then you've got your university. I don't know what's going to happen if I move, or when I move universities, whether that will change on all my articles or whether this will stay the same on the ones that I published while I was with SCU. But as you can see here, here's me blurb, and then here's a link. So here I say more than 300 million people live with depression. When I click on that link, it takes me to exactly where I got that statistic from. The World Health Organization, depression statistics. Yep. Then the conversation then adds little things that they like. They will link back to other conversation articles that are similar to what's in your article. Then they add the photos. This one I was more happy with. So here, what am I saying here? This way of eating is common in Mediterranean countries. So eating healthy is common in Mediterranean countries. And this takes the reader directly to a longitudinal analysis where I got that information from. So as you can see, it's really cool, like a journal, but you can click on the links, got some photos in there. Yeah, pretty basic, pretty simple. Any questions about the article itself and writing the article? Cool. Okay, so
sorry, is there
yes,
any particular like criteria to write an article?
Yes. So after you've done your pitch and you've given your 3 blocks of information, the editor will write up a framework of what you've discussed you will do and give you your 3 days. He says, this is what you said, this is what we want from that, and any extra things they want added to it that they want you to talk about. And they will give you like a draft of dot points that you have to cover in your article.
But if you said like you already written the article and then you need to change it, then
then you just have to refine it.
Yeah.
If they rarely say that, but sometimes they're like, whoa, this is really cool, but we want to know more about this. Now, when you are writing the article, the first paragraph is the most important because it draws the reader in, just like a journal. Start with sharp statement of the article's essential facts. What's new, what's relevant, what's important, all that sort of thing. And then do up like dot points of your main points and stick to them. Most important information first. Write how people talk. This is a really important one for all of us who have learned how to write in an academic way. Simplify, simplify, simplify. Make things like not technical, no scientific jargon, don't use acronyms. If there is a term that's specific to your field, define it. It's really hard to do sometimes because you're so in it. The reason that they do make you write like that is because they want their articles to be read by young people and people whose first language is not English. Now, this is what it looks like when you're writing your article. So this is the platform where you put your article in. And as you can see here, this is the same article that we just had a look at. Oh, no, it was a different one. As you can see here, the blue links are your links to the resources. And you just use the little hyperlink button at the top and paste in the website address. So it's really easy. You don't have, it's not like citing. You just go to the internet, find your source, copy the web address and paste it into your platform here. Then the editor uses this platform to edit your article. Now, this is where I need to tell you to be very careful, because they will edit your article like a supervisor who edits and gives you feedback on your PhD. They do the same thing. They change the wording, but it goes in like a track changes kind of situation where you can see what they've changed and you can accept or reject their changes. But be very careful, because in one of my articles, they changed a sentence about omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids. And because my knowledge on omega-3s was not amazing, I accepted it and published it. And then my supervisor read it and said, that sentence is wrong. And it was already published. And you can't retract anything on a conversation article after it's been published. It's impossible. They will not let you do it. So you have to be very careful with the changes that the editors make to your stuff. Always back up contentious statements with research, using those citation links. The last sentence of the article should summarize or reiterate the point, just like a conclusion. And photos, videos, audios, we've talked about that, brings it to life. Any questions before we move on? No? Cool. So the do's and don'ts of the conversation: always make it sound fresh and new. Do the keyword search first. Always be aware of what's happening in the media and how that relates to your research. Drive the debate forward. Know how to explain your ideas to a child. Get to know your editors and other journos. You have to leave your mobile on, because after you publish your article, you will get asked, or you will be contacted by media quite a bit for maybe a week afterwards. You will also have to attend to the comments on the page, whether they're trolly or not trolly. It's kind of professional etiquette to answer the comments. So you've got to be available to do so. And it does take up a big chunk of your time after you've done the article. My supervisor's got a bit cranky with me recently for publishing to the conversation, because they knew how much time it would take to do those extra bits, and I should be actually finishing and writing and submitting. So just be aware you need a little bit of time after it's been published. Don't argue against yourself or downplay your expertise. Don't ever criticize someone else's work in the conversation. Be very, very aware of the things that you write in the conversation and how that could reflect on the university. That's a really important one, which is why it's best to publish after you've written a journal article and it's been peer reviewed, because then you've been through that peer review process and you can't say something that someone out there in the field who's an expert can get you in trouble for. Just be aware of that. Don't tell the conversation you've tried somewhere else and they haven't published. Don't pitch after it's too late. 15 minutes. Earlier is better. Always be ahead of the game. Don't mass email journalists. Oh yeah, when you're promoting your conversation article, you have to be very aware of not standing on toes too much, and sharing on your social medias is fine, but blanket emailing people is not allowed. Don't give the editors 3,000 words when you agreed on 800, and don't pitch something that's been done before. And don't go missing in action when the media are looking for you. Okay, let's have a discussion about what we've talked about today. Any questions or anything that you want or you have thought about in the process?
So Megan, you were talking about that there is one sentence that your supervisor picked. So what happened to that after?
Sure. I got in trouble from my supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's it. She was very cross at me.
But the conversation, they didn't have any problem?
I didn't tell them. But it wasn't something very massive. It was just the the way omega-3s work in the body, and it wasn't,
Okay.
no one else picked up on it.
Oh, that's good. And does like your supervisor name was there as well?
Yes,
That's
which
good.
is why she was cross, because her name was attached to something that was
Yeah.
incorrect, and she did her PhD in omega-3. Yeah, so that's why she was cross. Another thing that did happen to me, which I found other people thought it was a bit scary, but I found it to be really good, was Rosemary Stanton, who is like leading nutrition scientist in Australia, gave me a bit of a talking to about something that was in one of my articles that wasn't exactly correct. But although she was pointing out that my facts weren't completely right, I then changed that in my PhD. I used her advice and changed a whole section of my PhD around that. So what it was I said that ultra processed foods that have white flour in them are bad for health, right? And I then said cakes, pastries, pasta. And she's like, actually, when you eat pasta, it behaves in your body differently to other white flours. And she gave me this big explanation in my comments on the conversation. And I took that as a learning experience and then went and applied it to my knowledge and changed parts of my PhD. So those things can happen as well. You can learn from other people commenting on your articles. And not everybody is perfect. I don't think that was like a big mistake, but it was like something that I didn't know about. So obviously, yeah, but it's cool.
How did you handle that in the comments then? Because obviously it's become an informative thing that you've been able to use in your research journey, but was that something that you addressed in the comments themselves? Like,
yeah.
Oh, thanks for pointing that out. That's awesome. But like, because you'd have to navigate that well, I think.
I think I said something along the lines of, thank you for your comments. I completely agree. It's really good to hear information from leading scientists in the field. I will be going and changing this in my PhD. I am grateful for this knowledge. Here, it might be here actually. We'll see if I can find it. Let's see all these comments. So many. Here she is. Hi, Megan. The flour used in pasta is from hard wheat, which has a higher protein content than the softer wheat used for cakes and pastries. And the flour for pasta is not bleached. And for those who are concerned about glycemic index, which is a secondary factor for food choice, except for those with diabetes, pasta has a low glycemic index. It is thus digested slowly. With pasta, as with every other food, it's the quantity and what accompanies any food that is relevant. A small serve of pasta with a healthy vegetable-based sauce is fine, whereas a large serve of pasta with a fat-laden meat sauce may not be. And I say, Rosemary, thank you for this advice. Would you have access to a paper that explains this in pasta? This information would greatly enrich my PhD thesis if I could read the scientific literature in relation to this. As the article says, we should be careful not to eat too much of these foods. I'm an advocate for not demonizing any one food, but the problem in our Western diet is that we often do eat larger quantities of foods that we should be eating in smaller amounts. And so then she's given me a link to the paper. Why does pasta have a lower GI? And then she says, and yes, I agree that the quantity is an issue. Some people serve huge bowls of pasta, the kind of bowl that would once have been considered as a serving bowl for several people's meals. Yeah. And then I thank her for the resource. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can be, you have to be very politically savvy in your comments, especially when you get trolled. But Rosemary wasn't trolling me. She was like helping me. And that's how I looked at it. So you've got to be very careful not to like take offense to all of the constructive criticism. Any other discussions or questions that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, but as you said that it takes a lot of time to reply and...
It does.
Yeah.
But I do...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Okay, well, I was just going to say it probably sounds bizarre, but I actually don't even have a smartphone. I mean, I do have a mobile phone, but where I live, I don't really have mobile reception here. Do you think that if I publish something in say the conversation, would they accept like a home phone, or I mean, would they accept email?
Yep.
I mean, it probably sounds crazy, I know, because everyone in the world has a smartphone, but I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yep, they accept all of those things. They know that there's more than one way to contact somebody, and they mainly contact you via email. So if you get an engagement with someone from the media, they will email you that engagement.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I check my email many times a day, every day. It's just mobile is just not the best for me.
No problem.
Megan, I know you said at the start of today that you're still finalising your discussion chapter for your PhD, but I'm just wondering, particularly the conversation article that you shared with us today, do you think that writing it for that educated 16-year-old audience helps inform like even your own, I suppose, discussion and maybe conclusion chapter of your PhD? Like it's kind of like two birds, one stone.
Yeah. So when I wrote all these articles, I haven't written on my PhD topic since the beginning. So I was 6 months into my PhD when I started writing the conversation. And you're exactly right. Writing about my literature review. So I reviewed all of the papers in my field, and then writing in that plain English way to a 16-year-old audience really helps to clarify and like refine your ideas for how you're going to write that section. So I found it very, very helpful. And you have to write your whole literature review in 600 to 800 words. So doing that is actually quite a cool thing to do. And then you can go and apply that to your PhD and expand out the bits that you wrote in the conversation. So it is a good tool for that as well.
Megan, I was just going to ask, I've sort of set up a website. I've bought the business name domain for future use and sort of set up the Facebook page, but none of it has my name in it. Whereas I noticed with yours, your Twitter, Insta and Facebook are all linked to you personally. Do you think that's a mistake?
Nope. I think that if you want to brand yourself, so I've actually branded myself. Let me see. I'll just go find my accounts again. So I branded myself really early. I branded myself in honours. And so if you type Megan Loving Me again into Google, all of my Twitter, Instagram stuff will come up. This name came about because I was interested in research on dieting, food restriction, intuitive eating and body image satisfaction. So that's where the name came from. But that's my name for all things except for my Twitter, because my Twitter, I wanted it to be more about my PhD and my professional academic thing. So that's Megan Lee PhD. But none of these are actually linked back to my personal accounts. They do have my name in all of them, but that might just have something to do with my ego, potentially.
You're a dag. Thank you.
No problem. But yeah, I think branding is a really good idea, and your name doesn't have to be in it, but be consistent with your branding. I've kept that brand now for 4 years. It's my thing. But I don't know how, and I tag that, I hashtag Megan Loving Me again to everything, but I don't know if that's working or what it's doing. Maybe if we click on it, we'll see. Yeah, so it's all just my stuff. Hopefully it will explode one day. Any other discussions or questions?
So you were saying, Megan, that you don't have Facebook account now. So if people comment there, and how do you reply them?
Well, I don't have Facebook on my phone. I do have it on my computer, but I am trying not to engage with it. So that is a good point, because now I stopped using Facebook actively on my phone on Monday, I think. So yeah, see, all these people have commented on my posts that I've posted from Instagram. and I haven't engaged with them. So that is a problem. Yeah.
So you basically don't reply on Facebook.
Yeah, which is not great because look, James and Renee have commented. So I do need a process or fit that into my day where I check my comments and my likes and my thing on Facebook. Otherwise, my followers on Facebook will be cross.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. If you don't reply to them, then it's not good.
Yeah, that's right. You need to be constantly engaged with your audience. So that's very good. Thank you for pointing that out, Gurmeet.
Yeah. So
I'm going to have to do that. Maybe when I start work every morning, I just check my comments.
Yeah, because you do post on Facebook, I see, but you don't reply to them, you say.
Yeah, because they go directly from my Instagram. So when I do an Instagram post, it just like directly
link to Facebook.
Links to Facebook, so I don't actually have to access Facebook to do so.
Yeah.
So, but that's a good point. Thank you. Anything else?
And one thing, like if you, because I see you retweet a lot on Twitter. So then when you use something you post and they retweet you, so like it's a back and forth thing, right?
Yeah, that's right. So retweeting is one of the best ways to get your stuff out there, because when they retweet, the other person retweets to all their followers. So all those people see it, and they're not people that you currently know. So getting things retweeted is the best way of getting research information out there, or getting data collection, or getting citations. So Twitter is the best one. Instagram, not so much for engagement, but Twitter is definitely, if you were going to only have one social media platform, I would say Twitter would be the one that's most beneficial for research and future career prospects. Pretty much everything that I've done is
when we get back to conferences and things, it's a really quick way. Like, you don't hand out your phone number to someone.
No.
That would be weird. But you, you meet someone and you're like, oh, I'd love to catch up professionally. The Twitter handle is the one that you can easily, you quickly like them on Twitter and they back and forth. And I think it's we don't hand our phone number out to people really. No. But it's like the equivalent of that, I think.
I think so too. And you can on Twitter when you're at conferences, you can constantly be tweeting the presentations that you're at. One of my favorite things that happened to me was when my research hero tweeted my conference presentation, and I was so stoked. I was and then I tagged it to the top of my Twitter, and I was like, look, Joe Firth, he retweeted me. And I was it's really cool. So conferences, I hope they come back soon. They're my favorite thing. But that's me at a conference actually in my profile picture.
Amy has mentioned in the chat that Instagram Reels get really great engagement as well.
Katie was trying to get me on the Instagram Reels at the last PhD writing retreat, and I'm just I want to be tech savvy and do that, but I'm I don't like actually posting pictures of myself. So
I think it's the next frontier though, Megan.
Videos scare me. Katie, can you talk a little bit about Reels and why they are important? They could be important for research.
Amy mentioned them. Amy, did you want to say something about them? Or I've never done a Reel myself, but I do spend lots of time watching other people do them. And I think, to be honest, they are a way to go viral. Either that or TikTok, which is Instagram Reels are just a poor man's imitation of TikTok. And I think that they are a way to get a viral thing out there, particularly if you've got something that's pretty topical, or if you've got a sense of humor and you can get your research kind of out there in that way. I think it is the next frontier that we're not up on, but
so if we could do our PhDs via dance, that would be something cool to put on a reel.
I don't know. I haven't gone there either, Megan, but I think that it is, it's a great possibility, I think.
Let's see if I can see one on this computer.
I was just going to say, can you show an example? Is it just like a cameo of somebody talking about their research?
I'm not sure if you can get onto Reels on the computer, Megan.
I
don't think
it's like a smartphone thing, is it?
It's a smartphone thing. I don't think you can.
Can you
the
explain what it
functionality is
is,
not there.
Katie?
Sorry?
Can you just explain what it is? I mean,
yeah, it's like a short video that people put up, and often there's I'm doing a very bad job of this.
Yeah, it's like a TikTok videos, right?
Yeah, and I think Jason wants us to explain what a TikTok video is.
So it's
as well.
like my daughter knows how to do that.
Here we go. I might see if I can show.
Yes.
They're just a very short little video that
short little clips.
often people will string several of them together. So you might revisit the same idea several times during the day. Or if you have 3 or 4 minutes of something to talk about, someone might make a whole bunch of them and string them together, but then it becomes essentially this little story of your day. And the reels only stay around for about 24 hours and then they're gone. So it is a
no, you're talking about stories. You're talking about Instagram stories. They only stay around for a little while. Reels stay around forever.
Do they?
There's a whole separate, they're short visuals with some text over the top.
Yeah.
Or, hold on, I'm trying to find one where you can have people doing things as well.
Yeah. So you basically click pictures one by one of different things and then join together as a video, and then you can talk about them, like what you are doing in that picture. So
so I think can you guys see this?
So funny. We sound like a bunch of old people trying to understand what the new young people do, which is what it is.
Yeah. Like my daughter always, like young daughter, she's like, oh, you don't know.
Ask a 12-year-old, they'll be really up on it.
Yeah.
But stories is another really cool thing as well. Like at the top here, stories only last for
24 hours.
24 hours, but they don't go for very long. So this is Brendan Stubbs. He's a researcher in my field. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
So he's put up an infographic about a podcast that he did. And then he talks about something to do with his research. And then there is him and whoever did the podcast with them. So like stories are another way of sharing your content as well. So.
And then something we haven't mentioned is the idea of an animated abstract or like the infographics that we can develop, which is a whole nother thing that you can develop, to sort of summarize your research in a really visual manner, and then get it out there and share it via all these platforms that we've talked about.
Yep.
So there's a lot.
And there's so many ideas. Yeah.
There's so many things that you can do with socials. I've only scraped the tip of the iceberg. Like I said, reels scare me a bit. I really don't like putting my own face on my Facebook or my Instagram. I try to keep it off there as much as possible. Yeah. Stories only stay in your profile for 24 hours, but you can save them to highlights that stay at the top of your profile. Okay, cool. Thanks, Amy.
Megan, I have a different question now. So you've talked a lot about engaging with social media to get your research out there, and you spent a lot of time talking about the conversation. Near the beginning, I mean, we discussed, what is the purpose of getting our research out there, and of course, well, one of the things was to affect public policy and to actually make not just getting the research known, but to make some kind of political or institutional or policy change. Have you affected, or do you want to affect, or do you have any idea how this might be used to create that, or I mean, is it just part? I mean, is it more than just like, okay, a lot of people are talking about this, and now hopefully some politician will pick it up and, you know, or go propose some legislative bill or something like that. Did you want to talk about that a little bit? I'm kind of interested.
Yeah. So you've touched on a very important point. Doing this is not considered research impact. Doing this, what we've talked about today, is the path to research impact. Research impact is when your research actually changes policy and practice. So doing this doesn't actually do this. And we can't find out whether doing this does that without people from policy and practice telling us that they've used our research, right? So I'm just trying to find a specific tweet. Actually, I might find it easier if I type his name in. Anyway, so, and this is something that I got tasked on in my interview when I went to Bond, is that they said, really good, not really research impact. So you need to start thinking about how do you find out when your research actually does make impact for policy and practice. You could be out there doing all this, all these hours on social media or writing for the conversation and not actually make any impact. So one of the exciting things, I don't know if I'll be able to find it because there's so much stuff on here, was that, oh, here it is. When I started my PhD, the big thing in our field was that diet could be a modifiable risk factor for mental health. The field was only 10 years old, but we didn't know for sure. There was lots of research that had been done on it, but Australia and the rest of the world wasn't really doing anything about it. They were doing lots of stuff about other chronic lifestyle diseases like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all these things, and nutrition, but they weren't really recognizing that mental health could also be a factor. And then, what date is this? June 14th, Tim Spector, who's a big leading microbiome researcher, put this up on his Twitter, on his Instagram, sorry. And finally, diet is now officially recognised as a modifiable risk factor and treatment target for mental illness in the 2020 Australian Productivity Commission Mental Health Report. This would never have happened without the research that has been on in my field on diet and depression. The stuff from Felice Jacker and all of the big people in my field. I don't know if my actual research has contributed to this, but I know that theirs has. So this is the sort of thing that you're looking for. In fact, Felice Jacker, who's the queen of diet and depression, missed out on an NHMRC grant a year ago and put a tweet out asking, because one of the big, she's written hundreds of papers on diet and depression. She's one of the leading people in the field, all of this stuff in her application. And she couldn't believe that she didn't get, the application wasn't successful. And what they said in her application was, you have not proved to us that your research is making any impact. So what she did was she went and she tweeted and she said, if you know anyone who has ever used our research to change policy or practice for mental health using nutrition, please contact me so I can put this in my next grant application. And she got a large response from people who were like, yes, we have used your work. But when government uses your work, they don't email you and say, hi, we used your work to change this policy. You have to go and find out when that happens. So that's the hard part about research impact and finding it out. ResearchGate and ORCID collect analytics about your research impact. Yes, Amy, they do, but they only collect analytics about your when your publications are cited by other scientists, not when government actually uses it to change policy, which that's what we should do. We should all get together and make that a thing that government has to put on your ORCID when they use you. That would be a really good thing to do. Yes, Annie.
I don't know if I'm a little bit old school. I listen to ABC Radio National all the time. And every year they have their ABC media residency program. I don't know if you've heard about that.
No.
So every year they give 5 people in their field developing, people who aren't at the top of their game, but who are developing, who've got interesting research. And they give them a media residency. So they give them opportunities to come on to various programs that they operate and talk about their research and get it out in the public eye.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
It's only 5 a year, but you'd be awesome at it.
Thank you. Jason, did you have something to say?
Oh no, I was just endorsing or acknowledging what you said, that it would be a great idea that academics should get recognition when they change policy, or when that should be part of their research impact.
I agree completely. There needs to be some form of formal process where that happens, because otherwise we're never ever going to know. Yeah,
and I mean, isn't that like sort of the
point?
To me, that's sort of like the ultimate kind of impact, is that you're making these structural changes with policies and so on. That I don't know. It seems odd that it would be neglected from what gets considered as impactful. But anyway, maybe that's something that needs to be pursued.
Yeah.
A quick comment. Sometimes it is mentioned in the second reading speeches, and they will refer to specific pieces of research, but other times they will just say very generally, research indicates, and you wouldn't know if it was yours or not. So speaking on both sides of the fence there.
But I meant in addition to that, Emma, what I meant is that even if the government recognizes it, or they will cite the research, that you should get credit for it. Somehow it should be recognized that your research contribute, not just that they said it, that they mentioned your name, but that you get credit for it somehow.
Oh yeah.
That even happens on an academic level though. Like 2 authors that I was working with did a study on student engagement, and after the study was done, word must have got around, and there was a newsletter put out by the VC saying this and this and this about student engagement, and we were like, is that from our study? I think that's from our study. And then we contacted him, and he's like, yeah, and we're like, do you want the actual figures? But he didn't quote the authors, even though they were from his own uni. But it was kind of cool. It was like, oh my God, he's talking about our study. So yeah, that was a very cool thing to happen. But yeah, same sort of thing. Research says this. Research by who? All right, well, I think that's us, people. We did 2 hours. That's pretty hectic. So good work for all still being here, and for engaging and listening the whole time. Add me on your socials and I will add you back, and I will retweet you and help you with your data collection and getting your research out there to the public.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Megan. It's been a really great session.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I learned so many things. Thanks, Megan.
Good, excellent. I'll stop the recording now, I think.